Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love, hosted by Richard Osler. My guest on today's podcast is somebody I've known for 6 years, but I've never met face-to-face, is my friend Jamison Manwaring. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
We're recording this podcast on 9/11. You'll be listening to it after 9/11, but that's a special day, obviously, in the history of America. I've listened to wonderful production that Jane Clayson Johnson did with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir commemorating that. So for those of you that are connected with 9/11, it's a tough day and a day to remember. I'm thinking also of 9/11 was a chance that our country really came together. And I recognize 20 years later, we're much divided as a country. And I think part of the purpose of this podcast is to find unity and diversity and ways to find common ground. And the intersection of being LDS and LGBTQ could be a way that divides us, but it could be our finest day to bring us together, to find common ground. And it's men like Jamison Manwaring, gay Latter-day Saint, willing to share his story that help us. It's also the day of the Utah-BYU football game. And that, by the time you hear the podcast, will be over. But we don't know if Utah or BYU is going to win tonight. And Jamison is in town for that game. Is that right?
That's right. I have my Utah shirt on, and I was walking around downtown this morning and saw a lot of blue and red intermix. So, yeah, came here, my dad, for Father's Day, and I'm also going to include his birthday because the tickets were pretty expensive. I said, let's go to the BYU game, and he turns 80 in a couple of weeks. Doesn't he turn 80? Yeah, turns 80 in a few weeks. So he's a BYU fan, and he has a granddaughter there. I have a niece there at BYU, but I went to Utah and love the Utes. So we're here, to the theme of the show. We're bridging the gap here between BYU and Utah, with going to the game together.
Tell us your tie to the University of Utah growing up in Idaho.
Yeah, well, I was never too close with University of Utah until I decided to go to school. I had moved to Provo, planned to go to BYU in 2008, and after living in Provo for a little while, I was at that point just coming to accept that I was gay. And I had originally moved there to Provo because I thought I hadn't met the right girl yet, and Provo was going to have the best girls. So that was going to cure me. So I moved there 2008, and the girls are great, but that didn't change anything. And so I was there for about a year doing some early classes at BYU, realized Provo was not going to be a good spot for me, and decided to look at my other options. Had spent some time at the campus, University of Utah, transferred there, and then I ended up having an awesome experience there. Loved it.
And what's your degree in, Jamison?
Finance.
And we'll probably talk more about that when we talk about your career. So anyway, I'm a Ute fan surrounded by BYU. My wife, I met at BYU, and all of our 6 kids are BYU fans. So when the BYU Utah game's on at our house, I kind of go and watch it alone and just kind of enjoy that experience for good or for worse on my own. So some common ground here.
I bet a lot of houses in Utah look like that today.
That is funny. Jamison's mom, Sue, is here in the room supporting her son. And I just wanted to introduce this family. Sue and Brett are a family that raised 8 children in Idaho Falls. They have 27 grandchildren and 8 grandkids and 8 great-grandkids. And at times on social media, I'll see this extended family picture, and it's just a beautiful family. I know 3 of their kids. I know their daughter, Sue's daughter, Amy Manwaring Taylor, and her husband, Brooks, in Idaho Falls. I've gotten to know that family. I know your brother, Jonathan, which I think is your 6th child, and his wife, Rachel, and they're the ones that have a daughter at BYU, I believe. And then Jamison, you're the 8th child, the baby, the caboose.
Yeah. Johnny's actually just 1 year, the one right ahead of me. So he's 7th.
So he's 7th. So we skipped one in there in the last 4. When I stepped into space in 2015, listeners, trying to understand how to support LGBTQ Latter-day Saints and just connected with a whole group of people that I'd never known before. The Manwaring family was just a family that I instantly recognized were in this space. And it took me a little while to figure out exactly why. It's because of Jamison. And then this whole family supporting and loving their son as he came out. So I just wanted to have Jamison on the podcast. This is probably 3 or 4 years overdue. But Jamison, at age 40, a business owner, spent time in New York in a really good place emotionally, spiritually, with his sexual orientation. I felt he could be helpful for those of you that are LGBTQ, especially you that are younger, trying to figure out this road, families that are finding out for the first time you have an LGBTQ child, local leaders that are trying to do a better job ministering to LGBTQ members in your ward. And I thought hearing Jamison talk would be very helpful. So that's our prayer. And if I do a good job as a podcast host, I'll quit talking and let Jamison do the rest of the talking. So I'll just kind of turn it over to you to wherever you want to start. And logically, it could be just your story of growing up in Idaho and being a closeted gay teenager, or wherever you want to start.
Sure. Well, one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast, because you and I have been communicating for about a year and a half, and I had, because of COVID, hadn't been up here a lot, but I had it on my list that once I got back up to Salt Lake, I wanted to do it because I really support anybody who will be in that messy middle. And it's not a comfortable place to be all the time. And what I mean by messy middle is someone who supports LGBT folks for who they are and is not trying to change them, and kind of does the same to the church. And that's hard to do, maybe impossible to do, some would argue. And I think it's so important to have conversations that you're having, because for someone like me, both of those things have been a big part of my life. Growing up LDS in a LDS community, I not only are you growing up in that community, but I really identified with my Mormon heritage. You know, if I think about why I live in the Western United States, which I love, my ancestors were converted in Europe and England and in Denmark, and they wanted to follow the prophet and be with the saints. So they crossed the Atlantic, and then they struggled with the saints there, and then came over the plains to Salt Lake, and then spread out to Arizona and Idaho. And that's why they were here, because they wanted to be with the saints. And I love that. I love the that I was able to be born in that, with that sort of heritage. How lucky am I to live in the United States, where we have the freedoms we have, the opportunities we have. And I did nothing to get that, but I was born into a great circumstance. And a lot of that has to do with my ancestors who followed the prophet. And then, I feel so blessed to be born in a great family with committed parents, in a great community. So these are things that I value. And as I grew up and 9-10 years old, started feeling a weirdness when it came to how who I thought was cute, who I was kind of drawn to. The conflicts kind of started because first off, I knew you're supposed to marry a woman and have kids. There was nothing that was going to change me from ever wanting to not do that. And then as they continue to grow and you go through puberty, and you grow up as an adult, that divide becomes a great divide in your life. And in my case, being in the closet, it metaphorically was a big canyon, and I didn't know how to bridge any of that at a young age. And up into my mission, the way that I bridged it was took whatever snippets I heard from church leaders around the topic. Not great resources at the time. I read The Miracle of Forgiveness, the whole thing. Right? It's funny, Miracle of Forgiveness, there's some good things in it after, I think, page 150 or something, that just talk about the traditional repentance process. But the first of it, that's what I kind of went on. And I made a lot of deals with God along the way. If I'm this devout Latter-day Saint, then this will go away because I don't see any way I can bridge this canyon. And my nickname was Mormon growing up. Any friends listening to this will remember on the football field, everyone called me Mormon because I was the Mormon. And then I, ultimately made a deal with God that as I got a little older and I started to see things a little bit more from the real reality of things, I started wondering, is this really going to change or not? But that was the deals that I had made, growing up, that this would go away. But ultimately, I kind of made that deal with God that, okay, I'm going to go on a mission, which I always wanted to do. But I'm not just going to go on the mission. I'm going to go all in on this, which was great. I mean, that's the only way to live life anyway, right? But I'm going to go all in on this. And that's when I come home from my mission, I'll be ready to get married and start my life. So I don't really regret that because I think you should go all in on your mission. And I had a great mission because of it. Loved my mission. And soon when I was out there, found that some of those missionaries that were out there were very attractive. And I thought that was going to go away, and it didn't. And I grew close to a few of them and felt weird about that. It didn't go away. So that was very disappointing at the time because, wait a second, I'm doing everything. I woke up, my mission companions can attest to it, 5:30, an hour early every day of my mission for that extra hour of study. I was kind of silly thinking back at the time, but I was all in. And thankfully had a great mission president, came out to him on my mission. And he's somebody who is one of the, I think I've said before, besides my parents and family, probably the most influential people in my life. Very intelligent guy. He worked on the Apollo missions for NASA, engineer. And when I told him about my same-sex attraction, as I called it then, he had no judgment, just empathy and love. And really kind of started helping me try to bridge that canyon. And so I have a lot of admiration for him for many reasons, but that's the biggest. As a, mission president who is totally believing in all the doctrines of the church, he tried to start helping me. How do I bridge this? And when I came home from my mission, started dating. Let's get this thing going. This is all going to work out. And I remember distinctly one day, 2 or 3 months home, it just hit me that this isn't going away. It's just there and stronger than ever. And I started having friends getting married. And that's the hardest part of my life. And maybe you say it, the darkest part of my life, but I certainly don't regret it. The hardest part was when, up until that point, you can just do the Mormon path and kind of fake it, but not now. Once you have to get married and you commit to another individual, now you bring somebody else into this thing. So that's a whole different situation. So as I got to that point, I think it's interesting because I explored all my options at that point. Once I kind of finally accepted that my sexual orientation was there, I also knew I never chose it. And that taught me something. That taught me that me and God are in this together, because he created me. I never chose this. So I got a partner here. So we're going to figure this out together, right? So the first thing that I did is I talked to a bishop, good bishop, at the time I had moved to Arizona, and he had at a stake leadership meeting had a training on someone who had a therapist who had a practice in Mesa to help folks overcome same-sex attraction. And this is in 2003, 2004. And he told me that, and I said, I never even knew that existed. And he gave me the guy's card, and this is what I've been waiting for. So I had the card on my mantle for a while, and finally decided to get an appointment, go down, talk to this guy. And I was really concerned who else would see me in the lobby of this guy's office. Because I had a persona that I had in my head that I can't let this thing out of the bag. I can talk to a few priesthood leaders, but that's it. And I met with this guy. This guy's name's Floyd Godfrey in Arizona. He's still there. Interesting guy, interesting story. And basically as I went and met with him, he basically told me there were all these reasons why I was feeling these feelings and that they could be fixed. And I was a little skeptical, but he kind of he got me excited about it. And again, I was going to go all in because this is the deal. And I bought his book. I shared the book with my family, and I'll tell you one thing he told me I had to do was I had to share it with people in my life that I had same-sex attraction, as we were going to call it. So I shared it with some people in my life, and I shared the book, and it was an education, and I was involved in his therapy for 3 or 4 months. I got engaged to a girl in that process. I brought her to therapy with me. I told her about it. And I thought we were on the path to go for some sort of, mixed orientation marriage, but that could work. Because these feelings were going to go away. They weren't biological feelings or natural feelings. They were just learned according to this therapist. And to put it in a nutshell, things unraveled very quickly. Okay. So, I did not, after that initial rush of here's all the answers I've been waiting for, I got very suspicious about a lot of the things that I saw in that, what we'd call reparative therapy. It's not all bad. There were some things that were helpful about the therapy, including the fact that he told me to tell people, and he encouraged me to do that. But overall, things didn't shift for me the way that he claimed, and a lot of the claims about why you would have the same-sex attraction over time there was not real scientific data behind it. And, you got to believe what you got to believe. And for me, I'm an analytical person, and I'm a spiritual person. And you have to really, as I dug into his claims and also saw my own experience and talking to other people and their experience, I realized that I could potentially go into a mixed orientation marriage with this woman, but these feelings were not going to leave. And that's where I got that. That's the reality that I came to. Ultimately, we did not get married. Thank goodness. And I decided at that point to live a celibate life. I would get all the joy from life out of my relationships with family and friends, and I'd just be one of those people who live single. And that's the low point in my life as I look back. And for anybody who, we have so much empathy, rightfully so, for the widows, for single parents. I have a sister who's been single for some time and basically raised her kids on her own. Incredible woman. It is hard, and I know it's hard because I've been there. But there's always that hope that you're going to find that next person, right? And I had got to that place where I'm going to be single my whole life. If you're married and with a spouse and they go out of town for a few days and you're alone for a few days, you know how that feels. And maybe if you don't, you need to take a little time and see how that feels. Give it a week or two alone all the time. You can have close friends all you want, but it's not the way we're designed as people. So it was a tough time for me, a couple of years that I was going to do that. And I got to a point where I was living with some friends, all straight friends. We had a house we had remodeled. They were all dating girls. I was pretending to date girls so that they would stop asking questions. 26, 27 years old. And I hit a wall and I said, this ain't working. This is not going to work. I was the Elders Quorum president, I believe, at the time, or ward mission leader. And it just was not working. And I'm thankful that I hit that wall, and I'm thankful that I went through all that experience. And I really am, but it was a lot of cognitive dissonance that created a lot of turmoil that probably could have been avoided in that 5-6 years of my life. I ended up going through a process of saying, I think I'm going to start dating men, and I want to, but I'm not going to tell anybody about it. And once and it was a long process to get to that point, but soon thereafter, I realized this is what it's supposed to feel like to actually like the person that you're taking on a date. This is the thing that my friend on our double date, when he's with that girl and he's not talking to me, he's just looking at her. That's what he's been feeling this whole time. Wait a second. I've been missing out on this. And it became very clear that that's how I'm going to get some joy in my life, is by a relationship with another man. And it took me a long time, Richard, to accept that about myself. But once I did that, once I said that was what I was going to do, then I started doing some more therapy. I did this all on my own. My parents, I paid for all my therapy. They probably didn't even know I was doing it. Went to other therapy to begin to work through that and come to self-acceptance. I went to Journey into Manhood, which there's some good and bad there. I got some good out of it. I probably wouldn't recommend it for everybody. But I was exploring what were my different options. And one thing that was good about Journey to Manhood was they do a lot of work around de-shaming. And I got some healing there. I didn't subscribe to everything they believed in, but I got some healing about it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be loved by a man. And they do a lot of that work there that I think is critical for wherever you're going to do that work. And Journey into Manhood is not something that is gay affirming. So that's why I don't recommend it. But I utilized the resources I had access to, and I got a lot. I got out what I needed to get out of it. And then I also did some other therapy just with one-on-one therapists that was really healing. And at that time I was living in Salt Lake. And probably the most healing thing for me, honestly, was when I moved to New York. And I realized how a gay person could live in a successful life. All the horror stories I had heard growing up about, you're never going to be happy. you're going to be, all the things that I don't even need to repeat about what it means to be gay. I didn't know anybody gay growing up in Idaho Falls, not a one person. So the only template I heard were the things that I had heard that were not positive. And I go to New York and I see gay couples holding hands down the street. And I see successful people at my firm, the most successful people at my firm, out openly gay with their partner and their family picture on their mantle. And it was just healing for me. It was just healing. So there's a little bit of the shorter version of that process.
Thank you, Jamison. And, Sue, as you're here in this podcast, I just think, I'm thinking of you a little bit, just that when you had these 8 kids, that you didn't know this would be your family story. But I think it's an incredibly successful family story. And as I hear Jamison talk, I think the principles you shared as parents and the love you created in your family and the love that continues to exist there is a great parenting success story. And to hear this articulate, well-rounded, thoughtful, son of yours with a great career and a great life and a great way to help people, I'm putting words into your mouth, but I just think you and your husband are doing such a great job. But it's a credit to you, Jamison. One of the things I'm reflecting of your story is you did everything you knew how to do. There was no single church resource you could go to and said, this is how you do it. You read everything the church had before your mission. And I recognize part of what you read, taught that you could undo this. That's something you did, and that's part of the miracle of forgiveness that I wish we would clearly communicate. We don't teach that anymore because that book is still in publication. And I love the nuance where you say there is some good in there, but there's some really painful things that are still in there that aren't the way the church teaches, that you would read that and logically just put it all on the altar, that somehow you could overserve in your mission and this would change. And so it just gives me so much empathy for where you are as a teenager in Eastern Canada on your mission. Jamison served in leadership in his mission for over a year, had a great relationship with his mission president. I admire your courage to come out to your mission president. It just seems like you're doing everything you know how to do to be straight. Who would not want to be straight, especially just where you grew up and the faith community you grew up in? I don't know how dark the days got for you, but I'm glad you're alive. And I think one of the things about your story is it gives hope to people that don't have hope just when they hear where you are at this point in your life.
Yeah. And that's the, I might consider myself lucky, honestly, that I had the support that I had, because I know many don't, and because could have been a lot different. And I think the things that allies do, and why it's so critical that there's people that stay in this space, is because that's where the people who need the help are, right? And we have to allow for people to get through some of these conflicts and come out better for it, which I think I did. I wouldn't go any other way, because one of my heroes is CEO of Apple, Tim Cook. And in his when he came out publicly, he said some beautiful things, but one of the things he said that allows him to be the CEO of the biggest company in the world as a gay man is he has very thick skin. He grew up in Alabama as a gay closeted person. And now he can run Apple. Right. So I don't regret it. But it's risky though, because I could have gone a different route, but now I luckily have people, angels along the way, to help me to get through it. And then if you get through it, it's a great thing on the other side. So I don't regret it. But we need to make it better so that folks so that we don't lose some of the most talented, beautiful, creative folks that God's created.
I love your employer, Goldman Sachs, and what they did there in the inclusive environment they created in their efforts to proactively meet the needs of their LGBTQ employees. We talked about that before we went live, and just how healing that was for you to be in an organization. It's not a religious organization, but yet it's an organization where they're working to create a feeling of belonging and a feeling of acceptance, because they want that organization to be the very best it can, and recognize that all people with all sorts of sexual orientations or gendered identities can contribute to the success of that organization.
It was like a light bulb went on when I got there, and they said, you will be more effective as an employee here if you are out, and we want you to come out. And they just said this broadly to everybody. And it made me think about all the time and effort and energy I had spent in my life trying to compartmentalize my life. I'm going to be church over here. I'm going to be this over here. And when you come back on a Monday morning to the office and people say, well, what'd you do over the weekend? And if you were out at the Pride event and you can't talk about that, or you were, in my case, playing in the gay flag football league, you can't talk about that. So you say, oh, I just mowed the lawn. Oh, what'd you do? Oh, and then they can talk all about their family and their straight life. And the light bulb went on when they said, you will be much more effective here if you just lay that down and you just are yourself. And it made me go, they're so right. And I'm not only do I want to live that way at work, I want to live my life that way. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to do the two trying to decide who I tell what to. And now I'm so lucky, because I know some people, gay or straight, don't live that way. I just live authentic now. What a gift that is, right? Everything. I'm 40, I'm single. Some people think that that's weird, especially in Utah. That's fine. I don't need to be on a pedestal anymore. I'm living my life in a way that, kind of a day at a time and just enjoying it. And I do want to do things in my life. I want to have a family. I want to do those things, but it's not for somebody else anymore. It's not for social pressure. It's because I'm going to choose to do what I want to do. And I don't think about how am I going to be perceived. And what a gift that has been in my life, is just not caring what people think anymore.
It's a great place to be. And I recognize society made it really hard for you to get there. I recognize you would love to have gotten there earlier, but it was just impossible. And our younger people are getting there quicker, and they have air cover from people like you and others that have come out. I love what you said way back earlier, where you said you came to this personal conclusion, personal revelation, whatever you want to say, that Heavenly Father is good with this, me being gay, because He created me. And so we're in this together. And with everything else sort of not, I'm paraphrasing that, but it's pretty powerful. I don't know if you want to talk about that anymore, Jamison.
As I look back, that was such an important realization and an important moment where I basically had a question. I think I even wrote it on a Post-it note that was, can I become who God wants me to become in my life as a gay man? And I just posted it there, and I'm just going to chew on that. And because I need an answer to that. And as answers often do in my life, they kind of come at 3 a.m. when I wake up. And
you're still on Eastern Canada time.
And I woke up and it was like, of course you can. Of course. And then the follow-up was, it depends on what you do. If I decided to go spend my life only about myself and maybe getting into drugs or getting into a very selfish life, I don't think that that's what God wants me to do with my time. I don't think that's why I'm here. But can I be a gay man and do great things and have a partner who I love? Maybe I never have a partner too. That's fine. Maybe I just have a partner every year. I still think I can be doing great things that God's happy with. Although I will say I don't want to have a partner every year. I'd like to have one person to live my life with, but maybe that doesn't happen. I'm not required that for happiness, and I'm not required that for becoming who God wants me to be. Some of the greatest people who I've met are people who have, in their own weird, eclectic way, lived a life that is not what we ever thought about as being a successful life in kind of the traditional Mormon culture. And I look at them, people who I met on my mission, people who I've met since, and I know that God's happy with how they've lived their life. And I think they've used their time very well. That's all I want to do. And when that answer came to me, I had that Post-it note. And when that answer came to me, it was just a sense of relief. It isn't about me being married to a woman that's going to make me live the life God wants, which is the story I'd been told. That's not for me. It's not. It's something else. And I can live a life that's that accomplishes what I'm here to do in my own way. And that was very, I thought I had to go back and think about that from time to time too. And I remember that moment when that came. I don't think that came from me. I think I woke up and I'd been thinking about that question, and then the answer came, and I bank on that, and I got a lot of peace around that.
I love that, Jamison. I love your idea of being authentic. I think of Christ, and I think he wants us all to be authentic and wants us to be our true selves and recognize the dissonance, if we're not, that can create within us. And culturally in the church, and maybe unculturally, it's hard to do that if you're LGBTQ. I'm thinking still of Goldman Sachs. They talk about the survey they sent out. If I understand correctly, they sent a survey out to everybody, but they wanted to get feedback from those that were LGBTQ.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I'm there about 6 months, and I'm in the closet. I'm dating guys pretty exclusively, but I'm not telling anybody about it. And I get to Goldman, and they have this supportive environment. It's not even, it's okay if you're gay. It's, we want you to be out here. We're training the straight folks on what they should do, how they can support you, how they can understand you. This is stuff that I think a lot of people just think, I know how to handle having relationships with LGBT people. I just don't talk about it. Just treat them like everybody else.
You're talking my language,
right?
From
and it's
7 years ago. That's me, man.
Yeah, that's better than nothing. So that's a step. But they put all their employees in training. So if you have a colleague has a same-sex partner, what should you ask about? How should you talk about it? And people come out of the, sometimes they go to the training begrudgingly, and then they come out of it going, I think I understand people better now, So they put this emphasis around it, and I'm going to the trainings and I'm seeing all of the emphasis, and I'm feeling so comfortable there. I'm feeling like if I could ever come out, it would be a place like this. And they send a survey out to LGBT members of the firm. And it says, if you're LGBT, reply to this. If you're not, don't worry about it. But we want to know if you're feeling affirmed here. We want to know what's helping, what's not helping. And it was just so thoughtful, right? Just asking, how is it? We don't get that as LGBT people, right? So it touched me when I got it. It made me go, wow, this is a special place. Special people here. And I didn't fill the survey out when I got it. And it started eating me a little bit, saying, can I live with myself not telling them thank you for the efforts that they're putting in this firm? Because clearly all their efforts are really for me, this guy that's closeted. And I do feel so much better being here. So a few days later, I woke up early.
3 a.m.
3 a.m. That's kind of my time. It might even be 3:13. I don't know. It's pretty much the same time still many days. And it was really clear that it was time for me to come out publicly. At that point, only my family really had known. A couple friends, but not even some really close friends had known. And I was like, I just want to come out. And that survey really prompted it, because I wanted to fill the survey out, and I knew that my boss would find out that I filled it out, and he didn't know I was gay. So I ended up deciding to come out, and I filled the survey out, and that really did prompt me to make that next move. And maybe I would have come out later with something else, but that's really what prompted me. And the only thing I would say about coming out is I wish I had done it earlier. The only thing that prevented me from coming out were my own fears and social pressures, which are never good reasons to do anything or to not do anything. And I look at the kids now. My nephew, he came out just junior year. They have some real courage, and they grow their courage by doing it. They have enough courage to do it, but their courage just expands by doing it, because that's how we grow in anything, is by doing something. So when they actually do it and they say it, I love it. And I love the fact that they're doing it early. I love that they can go to a prom with someone that they like. I wish I had been able to. Right.
Talk about coming out. So talk about your coming out video in 2013. We right in 2013 with this Goldman Sachs survey?
Yeah, that's right. I decided to do a video because I wanted everybody in my large extended family and other friends from college, from mission, to hear it from me directly. I didn't want them to hear it from somebody else or from a letter or from an email. I'd rather them just have to look at me and hear it from me. So I decided to do a video and recorded a video. It's kind of a somber video. And I'm glad I did it, shared it, and a lot of people shared it, even though it's not a real, fun video to share, just kind of a topic that I think a lot of people cared about. So they shared it, and it was great. All those fears kind of went away. The fears tend to come before we do something. So once we do it, the actual reality is usually less. And it was. And the anxieties I had, my family had about doing that, looking back, they were all for naught. Those anxieties were just in our head. And the responses were all good. And then we've had other things on top of that we never expected. And not only me, but family members, where people have come up to them and said, I saw that video and I have a family member. And if we hadn't done that, those connections never would have happened. That sense of shared experience together would never have been able to happen. So glad that I bit the bullet. Just wish I had done it even earlier.
And I know your mom, who's here, has talked about how many in the community that you live in have talked to you because you've got a gay son and they've got gay family members and need someone to talk to. And I recognize the role that your family plays, just like you're describing, Jamison, in the broader LDS community, of being a safe family.
And one of the things I talked about early on is I didn't choose this, and I know my family didn't choose this either. And that's really, in my opinion, what a parent is. It's not about, as a parent, it's not about you. It's not about you reflecting your ego or what you want on your kids and having your kids make you look like a shining star. It's about what's best for my kid. And that's what real parenting is if my kid's this, I'm going to support them the best way that I can. Sometimes as a parent, maybe you don't want to do that. Or if brother, you don't want to do that. But the growth that comes into what a selfless parent is, and that's happened in our family, right? We none of us chose this, yet here we are. And I think most of them would say we're beneficiaries of it.
Sue, do you want to give any advice for parents with LGBTQ kids? We're kind of ad-libbing here. The microphone's going your way.
I would tell them to get educated, maybe get into a group that you can talk about with each other's feelings, and never be ashamed of your child. We knew that Jamison didn't choose this, and through his siblings educating their mother, telling me what to say and to hug him and tell him that we're proud of him no matter what and we love him no matter what. And so he has great siblings. His brothers and sisters have just been behind him and have taught his parents how to be better parents because of their example. And I think those are some of the things I would tell them.
Sue, you don't make it very complicated. And what you said is so powerful. You don't need to give a 20-minute answer. What you gave is really powerful and really simple. And I love, before we went live, how you talked about Jamison. I don't know if these were the exact words, but just one of your most spiritual children and just deeply connected to our Heavenly Father.
Yeah, and I think this has been hard for my mom and my dad and siblings. It has been, and we're a little out of that now. But there's nothing like a mother's love. That's got me through a lot too. As hard as it's been for her, I knew it's been hard, but I knew she always loved me more than anything else. That's so important, even through all of the other stuff. So she doesn't have to even think about that. She just does love me, and that's the best part.
It's a great spirit here as you two just are here talking about this. And I think this is your finest family moments walking this space. And I would think your families had more vulnerable and honest and real conversations. And the whole culture of your family has changed to a point where your family just talk about stuff, whether it's whatever subject. And I think it's a great credit to your family culture, as I've met many of your family, and I just see that picture once in a while come across my Facebook feed of Sue, you and your husband, Brett, and this whole posterity. And there's just happiness in everybody's faces. I think that's what our heavenly parents want for families. And it's hard at times, and original expectations don't always turn out. But what just happened between you and Jamison, to me, that's where heavenly parents just love that we can love each other.
And I think it's important too that I'm not pushing my family away from the church. It means too much to them. It's been a great thing for them in their life, and I don't want to. I've never wanted to disrupt that in their life, and that's been a real challenge. But I know how important it is to my parents, to my siblings, to support the brethren, the leaders of the church, to support the doctrine of the church. And So we kind of leave that aside and we just focus on love. Okay? Because we're not going to solve that one here. Thankfully, I don't think our lives end here, so we have other time to figure that out. But I want to honor that from them. I try not to stir the pot too much.
Why, Jamison? Because there probably is tremendous pain for you. I'm putting words in your mouth that something outside of your control, your sexual orientation, has not made possible some of the things you hoped for, and that the church has not always or often been helpful to you, like Goldman has, for example. And there's pain and anger, and you had lost any pain goes into anger that sometimes needs a face or a focus. And this is maybe you talking to others that feel so much pain and anger at the church, and maybe want to get past that if possible.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. And I've got a lot of peace by really focusing on acceptance and really trying to fill that. And at first it was accepting my own sexual orientation. And now it's accepting the church, not for what I want it to be, not for what it should be, in my opinion. Just accept it. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to change it. And there's a tremendous amount of peace in acceptance. And it's the same with people in family or friends who have different views on LGBT. I just accept them. That's just where they're at right today. And I don't try to say, well, maybe they'll change. They're just... And I try to get under the layer, because underneath whatever facade, there's a layer of a spiritual good person there. There is. I can't think of anybody who has views that I totally disagree with, but if I can get past those and go to the essence of that person, that human, they're good. They're with rare exceptions, we're such good people, and we're all in this together. We're brothers and sisters. We're all children of God, to use our common LDS vernacular, right? So we let all these things that are surface level, political issues, LGBT issues, divide us, and we forget getting to the essence. And I'm not minimizing it. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying I want a relationship with my dad. 80 years old. I don't know how long he's going to be here. I want a relationship with him. So I'm not going to spend all my time trying to change something that he cares a lot about, because I want a relationship with him. That's all we have, right? For the rest of our lives. And I'm not going to, I don't want to, the people in my life who value the church, they're some of the best people in my life, and I don't want to minimize that for them. So I think that for me, I focus on accepting it. And there's a tremendous amount of peace there. And when I lay that sword down or lay that cross down, then I can just focus on me being with that person.
I'm just so moved by that. The maturity of where you are. Grace is the only word I can use to put my arms around what you just shared with us. Just tremendous grace. It's the gospel of Jesus Christ you're sharing with us, Jamison. I think of a headline I saw in the Deseret News recently about preserve the relationship, and how that's the thing I think that makes our heavenly parents really happy, is when we find ways to preserve a relationship and keep the family circle together, and sort of let it all at the Savior's feet. And you and the Manwaring family are doing that. But where you are is I don't meet many people that have kind of gotten to where you are. And I'm sure if we did this podcast in 2013, it might be a little different, but it's a credit to you, Jamison, and just all the work you've done with all the places you could go to find help, to just continue and to not to try to do this all alone, and bring all the people in your life to help you. And you're a strong guy, used to doing hard things on your own. It takes a bit of, I don't know, we want to use the humility, but just a bit of, just who you, the core character, you saying, I'm going to use all the resources in my circle to get where I need to be because I want to be in a good spot. And there's not much of a roadmap for me. I've got to kind of figure this out myself.
And I've lived a very rich life because of that. I do. I mean, I've been able to understand people who I never would have thought I would have understood, who I have friends in mixed orientation marriages. I have friends in gay relationships, long-term relationships, and I feel like I understand both how those dynamics. One person who started a lot of that initial journey into manhood, David Matheson, got to know him before, and now I see where he's at now, as he basically has said that sort of therapy doesn't work, and he's one of the founders of it. And I like the richness of life, right? I mean, I like exploring this stuff, and I don't regret. That's why I don't regret that journey I had in my 20s. It was bumpy, but I was able to really see things, and that now I have a lot more respect for people. I have friends with Ty Mansfield. He helped me in my early stages, and now he's married and has kids. I've chose to live a totally different life than him, but I respect him, and I feel like he's lived the life for him. And why can't we just let people do that? The answer is we can. We're just scared. We're scared of what that means, and that goes for me too. If I want him to be able to live a life as a someone with same-sex attraction with a woman and have kids, and if I'm not okay with that, but I'm okay with me having a partner and kids, then that's not consistent. We have to support people when they're doing things that they're living the life that they feel like they should live. We just need to support them and get back to that essence of them living their best life, as the saying is right now. And I feel like I'm living my best life right now. I really do. I mean, I'm grateful for the journey that I've had, and grateful for where I'm at now. And I just try every day to be happy that I'm alive, because there's a good chance I couldn't be alive today. I'm happy to be alive, happy to be doing things like this, and looking forward to, a great life going forward as well.
And you are doing great things. We haven't even gotten to some of these things like what you're doing. You founded a company called Neighborhood Ventures Incorporated in Phoenix, Arizona. The article that I'm looking at here says From Wall Street to Main Street, and just your work to spread the wealth around. And just talk a little bit about what you're doing professionally.
Yeah, so after Goldman Sachs, I moved to Arizona to join a company that I had helped with their IPO, LifeLock, and worked there for a few years. We got bought out, and I decided to found another company with a business partner. It's been 4 years now. Basically, what we do is we're a commercial real estate developer, and then I raise the capital in a fund. And we have big investors that invest millions of dollars with us, and we have investors that invest $1,000 with us, the whole gamut. And we decided to build our business that way because we wanted to have a very diverse investor base. And we wanted to open it up to a large group of people and not limit it, which typically investing in commercial real estate is limited to high net worth individuals. So we set up our company completely different. We do crowdfunding, so you invest directly on our website. We had an event that in our early days when things were hard, as any startup, any new challenge, you're going to have your hard days. And I was having a hard day. It was actually about a year and a half ago. And we went to an event, and a bunch of investors had come to an open house. And there was a guy there in a postal uniform. And I thought, is he really an investor in our project? And I went and started talking to him. And before I even could say anything, he said, I love what you guys are doing. I've been working this neighborhood for 20 years. And I saw your flyer that you got what you were doing. And I was so excited to be able to invest in a project right in a neighborhood that I knew so well. So he invested like $5,000 in a project right in his neighborhood. And that was when it really, the light bulb went off for me that I love that we can have such a diverse group of investors. My grandpa, my dad's dad, was a postal carrier his whole life. Hard work. And they get very few, sexy investment opportunities like this. And so for this guy to be able to invest with us, and the guy that's standing next to him invested $300,000, he doesn't know that. No, I love that part about what we're doing. And so we just closed on our 10th project, all in Arizona. The latest one is a 120 unit hotel that we're converting to an apartment. They all have kitchens in the hotel. It's like an extended stay hotel, and there's a big shortage of housing in Arizona. So we're converting it to an apartment building. We've raised about $3 million from our investors. We have 200 investors in the project. So I'm loving it. I love what we do, and I love probably the biggest thing with being an entrepreneur that I love is being able to have a vision and create it. When you work at a big company, you're kind of a cog in the wheel. That's why I didn't last at Goldman. I was good for a while, but you're easily replaced. Now you go create a company, you can see a vision that you have in your head come to reality, and it's fine. It takes a while, but it's finally doing that. So it's been really, really fun and rewarding.
I love you sharing that. And I think the word I wrote down is hope, Jamison, as you were talking. You at 40 give hope to younger LGBTQ people. That I think hope is one of the greatest gifts we can give to each other. And especially someone who says, how is my future going to work out? Is there a path for me? Can I have hope in this intersection? And to hear your story of where you are and how you're contributing and how your career has unfolded, it gives hope to straight people listening that don't quite know how their life's going to work out. And I assume if I'd had you on the podcast at 21 and you had talked about this kind of stuff, being your own company and doing this, it would have been, I don't know, probably it's just different. It's interesting how it's just all worked out.
And maybe the one little advice there,
good, go for it.
Is, I spent a lot of time, in my head with these worries, with these fears, with these concerns. And the biggest thing is just starting to do something. Just go, have an idea, go do it. Try it out. Failure is okay. You're probably going to fail, and that's just okay. You'll go do something else. But I spent probably more time than was necessary kind of dithering, going back and forth. And at some point, you just got to move. You got to go and do it. And that's where the real magic comes when you go start something and see it happen.
And I love in this profile piece that you mentioned your mission president. The question is, aside from your parents, the most influential person in your life is Lynn Blake, LDS mission president. And then later on, it talks about you being a foster parent, and just like a straight person would talk, just factual. I got licensed last year. I have 2 kids. I have 2 kids placed with me so far. I'm gay, so I don't have a wife to have biological children. Just a statement of fact with no shame. And I like the way you just you're just authentic, back to the word you used on just who you are. And you've matured to a point that seems to come pretty naturally for you just to talk about who you are. And I think that gives hope for younger people. I'll just say one more comment and give it back to you. But I do, since I'm a marketing guy, I'm always thinking about ways to improve. And I do love what Goldman did And I think of what we could do as a church to create more belonging. That's a word that's really picked up in the church recently. And the feelings that Goldman did to create value in you, and the education they did internally to help straight Goldman Sachs employees know how to better support LGBTQ Goldman Sachs, because it helped the whole organization. And I believe those same needs exist within the church. And to do that, listeners, I don't think you have to change doctrine. You just have to create, the bar's kind of low sometimes in this space within the church. And I'm a marketing research guy, so I think of that survey going out to all members and saying, if you're LGBTQ, what could we do? And then the training that could happen at the local level just to create. And then maybe the thing that touched me the most about the Goldman piece is that we need you because you'll help us be a better company. And some of our very best and brightest people are LGBTQ executives here, contributing immensely to the success of this company. And that's where I mourn a little bit, Jamison, to be honest, that we don't have a place a lot of times for LGBTQ members, and they make their way forward, and some, like you, giving grace to, that find a way to make it work in the church. And I love that you support people, but I love the way you're just supporting everybody on their individual path, and that's certainly what this podcast, but I do mourn that many just feel that there isn't a place for them, and we're worse off. And I just recognize that. And so, yeah, your contributions to our church that happen so much of your life aren't really possible right now. And I don't fault you.
Yeah, I have to go serve outside the church. And there's a lot of places that need the service. But I would be happy to serve in the church. It's partly a generational thing. So when I started at Goldman, there was 5 or 6 BYU grads that started with me, joining at Goldman. And these are the best and brightest, including number one in the accounting school at BYU, which is the number one accounting school and the number one in the class, started with me. And these people see no conflict with their religion and supporting LGBT people. The millennials, they see a conflict if they aren't supported. That's where their conflict comes, and it's real to them. The same person, if I said his name, he'd be embarrassed probably, but he was number one in the accounting school at BYU, number one accounting school in the nation, and he was not Mormon. But he had come here and he lived with a Mormon family in high school, did BYU. And I asked him, I said, so what do you think about the church? And this was actually before I came out. So he assumed I was straight, and he knew I was LDS. I said, so what do you think about the church? You went to high school here, you went to BYU here. He said, I love the church. And he said, so many good things about it with family. I think I loved it. He said, there's just one issue: how they treat LGBT people. And he didn't know that was me, but that was his issue. Number one, out of his class. And if I think about who does the church want to bring in to the fold, it's this guy. And he, off the cuff, he said, I love everything about one thing: to him, he cannot reconcile that. And I think he has a point. And I think, as our generation, we don't see a conflict in that. We see a conflict in not doing that.
That's a great segment. And you speak for so many others when you share his story, and their doctrinal foundation to feel that way is they look at the life of Christ. They're not looking at a news story to come to that conclusion. I think a lot, like me, have just come to the conclusion looking at the life of Christ and what he taught. And we just have work to do. And it's a really painful time in the intersection of being LDS and LGBTQ. But I love what your family's doing, and what you're inviting others to do is just be the very best self you can. And our job is just to love you and support you and help you be the very best self you can. And your family has done that. And I look at the way you're contributing, and I look at the space you're in emotionally and spiritually, and, credit to you.
Yeah, and I know right now is a hard time for allies. But when I was growing up, there weren't allies in the church. And so it is so important that you guys keep doing your work, even through the pain and the canyons that are growing in your own life. And I don't know how you reconcile all of these things, but there's I just know how important the work is that you guys are doing. And so part of why I wanted to make sure I was on your podcast was just to say thank you for the work you're doing. You're in the trenches. Stay in. We need you to stay here, and we need all the other folks who are doing it to stay there too.
That's great. Anything else, Jamison, you'd like to share? All right.
I think I'm talked out.
Well, Sue, thank you for sharing some thoughts as a mom. That spoke to a lot of parents. And Jamison, thank you. And if there's any Manwaring family members listening, you are just an incredible family that has blessed my life and has mentored me in this space. And I think you've mentored and helped people more than you'll ever know. That's the entire family I'm speaking to. So this is Richard Osler and Jamison Manwaring signing off from another episode of Listen, Learn, and Love.